Hi, my name is Nico the X-Man, and welcome to Words That Change the World, a series where I do speeches throughout history that changed how people viewed the world around them. And then I reflect a little bit on what I learned while preparing that speech. This is going to be episode 3, Greta Thunberg's 2019 address to the United Nations Action Summit, Climate Action Summit, commonly known as How Dare You. Now, like most people, I had heard this speech, or at least clips of it. I knew how angry she was when she delivered it and how much passion she had for the subject that she was talking about. But what I did not realize at the time, or at least what I maybe forgot, was how short and specific it was, how many facts she included, giving direct timelines and predictions to what might happen. Greta wasn't just telling people that she was angry. She was giving them numbers. She was telling them and naming the choices that they were making. She was calling them out. She was letting them know that the younger generations were watching, and I'm letting them know that we still are. Because the speech is only about 4 minutes long, I'm going to be able to perform it in full. So this is Greta Thunberg's How Dare You. My message is that we will be watching you. Because this is all wrong. I shouldn't be here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean, yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams. You have stolen my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. There are people suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and the solutions that are needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us. You say you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad or angry I am, I don't want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and you still kept acting and failing to act, that and you would be evil. And that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emission in half in the next 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees Celsius and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions that will be beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you. But those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming that has been hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity or of climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that either do not or barely exist today. So 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, to we who have to live with the consequences of your actions. To have a 67% chance of staying below a 1.5 degree global temperature rise, the best odds given by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the world had 420 gigatons of CO2 left to emit on January 1st of 2018. Today, those numbers are already down to 350 gigatons. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and with some technical solution? With today's emission levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be gone in 8.5 years. There are no solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today because the numbers are too uncomfortable. And you are not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us. But the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say, we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up and the change is coming, whether you want it to or not. Thank you. So that was my interpretation of Greta Thunberg's 2019 speech, How Dare You? The thing that surprised me while preparing the speech wasn't necessarily the anger. I knew the anger was there. I knew the passion was there, but it was the accuracy. So that since that speech, since all of the actions in the Green New Deal and those protests that happened after this speech was given, almost nothing has changed. She was treated at the time of being extreme or naive, but years later, the world she was describing is is becoming ordinary at this point, right? Just last month, I think there were 17 wildfires here in Minnesota, right? That's not normal. It happens. Wildfires happen here. The air quality being so dangerous that it was hazardous even for regular people to go outside is not normal. But issues and things like that are going to keep happening, right? Because we're dealing with extremes. Most periods in Earth's history are dealt with in thousands or millions of years. We are talking about hundreds of years. That is not normal for the Earth. That is not normal for the planet we live on. The accuracy of her speech is what makes it so hard to dismiss. Because when she gave it, at the beginning of 2018, they had 450 gigatons left to emit. Today, 2026, we are down to 130 gigatons for a 55% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees Celsius. That is almost perfectly in line with her estimates. We only have 3.5 years left. We have 130 gigatons that last us 3.5 years based on current estimates and usage. That's not enough. That's not nearly enough. We used to have all these initiatives around the 2050, which became 2040, which businesses realized wasn't going to be possible, and now they're just gone. Those promises are just gone, as if COVID or Trump somehow made it okay for them to just ignore it, because the businesses were never doing it because they wanted to. They were never doing it because they believe in the right thing or the good thing. They were doing it because it was the popular thing. They were doing it because it made them money and generated revenue, right? But when it came to actually making the changes, most of them are nowhere near on track for the promises they made. Most of them are still failing us today, and we will remember them for who they are, for what they are. And if they do not want to be remembered as evil, if they do not want to be remembered as tyrants and despots, they need to make the changes necessary so that our future generations, so that my generation has a chance to live, right? Last week I did Malcolm X's The Ballad of the Bullet. We are dealing with extreme times, and extreme actions are required to deal with extreme times. And I live in America, right? I live in the richest country in the world. I am protected from most of the issues that my country does, right? Most of the evils of the world I am isolated from, right? But I don't want to be remembered as the country that burned the world to the ground. I don't want to be remembered as a citizen in the country that looked away and put profits before people as people were dying in the global south, in Europe, some of our closest allies, right, are dying from these issues. But we don't want to risk our profits. We don't want to risk our retirement accounts. We don't want to risk the economy declining, right? The fairy tale of eternal economic growth. We put our values into money and into the dollar instead of into people. If you want to talk about eternal economic growth, people is where you find it. The growth of community, the growth of investing in each other, investing in solutions rather than just abating problems because of tradition and conservatism, right? Putting our ideas and our resources to where they will matter in the long run. Otherwise, there will not be a future. The people who created these issues are not the people who are going to solve them. The people who got us into this situation are not the people who are going to get us out of it. The ideas that brought us here are not the same ones that will save us. We need new ideas. We need new strategies. We need new policies. We need new styles and ways of doing things. Because if we keep doing things the way we've always done them, we will continue to get the results we've always gotten. which is death, which is poverty, which is degradation. But this is not something we can afford to look away from. This is not something we can afford to delay. If we do not change soon, the world will change around us. The world will go on. Our ability to live in it will not. Thank you for watching episode 3 of Words That Change the World. The first 2 episodes were on Frederick Douglass and Malcolm X, and they're already on my channel. The next episode is going to be Harvey Milk's Hope Speech. Subscribe if you want to follow the series and you want to keep up with what I'm doing. Let me know in the comments what you heard from this speech, and did you feel any different hearing it now than you did back in 2019? How does this speech still feel relevant to today for you? History remembers the speeches and the people. I'm trying to understand why they still matter today. So thank you for joining me on that journey.